Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Sam. I hope that everyone is having a great start to their February so far. And with a new start to the month means we can chat about the books that I read in January. I read 8 books in January, and although this isn't the most number of books that I have read in a month, I think it was my best reading month in a while. I had a range of ratings, but overall, I really enjoyed what I was reading, and I was very excited to be picking up another book and reading. So, overall, I was having just the best time, and I can't wait to continue this momentum. So, I did actually take notes in my notes app as I was reading these books to try to be able to have a better summary and better review when I film these videos. So if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my laptop, and I really hope that this helps me articulate what I was feeling about these books, because most of the time, as soon as I finish a book and I move on to the next one, all thoughts are gone about that last book. So hopefully this helps, and this is something that I can implement throughout the rest of the year. But without further ado, let's just jump in and chat about the 8 books that I read this month. The first book that I read in January was Eragon by Christopher Paolini. I borrowed this copy from my boyfriend that he's had for a number of years. I was really excited to read this book. I heard a lot of people talking about this sort of at the end of 2023 because Murdoch just came out. And this wasn't a book series that I ever read growing up. And being in this sort of like 2010s, early 2000s nostalgia book vibe that I've been in for a couple months, I really wanted to go back and honestly read a bunch of series that were popular, but I have been wanting to read this series in particular for a while. This book is about a boy named Eragon who, through his hunting journey, ends up finding a dragon egg which hatches and bonds to him and follows him, learning about the dragons and about the kind of conflict between these two different groups within this land. I ended up only rating this 3 stars. This ended up taking me like 2 weeks to get through. It just wasn't really what I was hoping for. The pacing was kind of slow, and even though there is a really good map in the beginning of this book, I found the story really hard to follow, and I couldn't tell when they were talking about a group of people or if they were talking about a specific region and like where they were necessarily going. So that took me a long time to figure out, which definitely hindered my enjoyment. There's also one character in particular that I did not trust as far that I could throw him. So it really just sucked it out of me. I didn't really connect to any of the characters. And Eragon is very young, so he's kind of naive and hot-headed. So I just didn't really vibe with any of them, and that definitely takes my enjoyment down a lot. I have to be connected to these characters. I really enjoyed the dragon. After Fourth Wing, I have really wanted to get into more books with dragons, and I was very excited about this one because, hello, it's all about dragons. But I found that I feel like she was supposed to come off as like sarcastic, but she kind of came off like preachy and like not necessarily a friend, more like not even a teacher, just like a grumpy elder or something. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I'm really hoping that the series gets better the farther along, but unfortunately, I was kind of disappointed in this one, and this did not start my reading year off great. The next book that I read was Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the Crescent City series. Emily and I were continuing our rereads in anticipation of House of Flame and Shadow coming out yesterday as I'm filming this video, but a few days ago when this is going out. I was very hesitant to go into this series for the second time because it was not my favorite the first time around, and I was extremely confused. There was a lot going on, so I really wasn't sure what I was necessarily getting myself into. But I'm happy to say I enjoyed this series so much more, or at least I enjoyed this book so much more than I did the first time. I ended up rating this 5 stars on reread. This is an urban adult fantasy series, which is definitely different to what I typically read in terms of fantasy, so it is a little bit challenging to get into. And I've heard some people compare it to like a urban fantasy Zootopia, which I kind of see. In this book in particular, I didn't necessarily pick up on any Easter eggs or clues or anything to move us further in this series, but I did pick up on some hints and clues, I guess, to get to the big finale. I was definitely a lot less confused this time, and I really, really enjoyed it. If this wasn't your favorite Sarah J. Maas book on initial read, I would suggest giving it a second chance, because having that background knowledge, it definitely is a lot easier to go back into and understand what's going on. So I definitely have a newfound appreciation for this book. I still don't think this is my favorite series currently by Sarah J. Maas, but obviously we only just got the 3rd book, so that could definitely change. I really picked up a lot more on the grief and mental health rep that is focused in this book. And I really appreciate that Sarah J. Maas does that with all of her series. She does a really, really good job of showcasing like how her characters are dealing with real pain and mental health in a way that is realistic. And there were definitely aspects of our main character that I related to. I never know how to summarize Sarah J. Maas books because there's so much going on in every one of these books, and I never want to give anything away, and I really think that going into these books blind is the best way to go. So we're following our main character, Bryce, who is a half human, half fae, and finds herself in the midst of a murder investigation, and her, along with some of our side characters, are trying to figure out what happened in this investigation. And that's all I'm going to say. It's a murder investigation with fae, and I had a good time. Okay, the next book that I read in January was The Confidence of Wildflowers by Michaela Smelter. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed my time with this, although I did have a couple issues with it. This is definitely like a dark, taboo sort of romance. So definitely go in, check the trigger warnings if you have something that you like to stay away from. Our main character, Salem, read really young. She is newly 18. She decided that she doesn't want to go to college. She really likes her small town and wants to just try to figure out what she wants to do with the rest of her life. Then she has a new neighbor who moves in next door, and they sort of form a connection, and it goes from there. I honestly just kind of felt like the other shoe was going to drop this entire story. And although this book is not the best book that has ever been written, the writing is not the best writing that I have ever read, I could not put this down. I wanted to be reading this every second of the day until this book was finished. And when it was finished, all I felt was pain. So take that how you will. The one thing I will say, there was a trope in this book that I really, really, really dislike, but kind of plays into the taboo vibes, I guess. So if you don't want a single spoiler, jump ahead the next like 5 seconds. But the cheating trope is in this book, which I really hate. I really don't like it, but it definitely adds to story and the character development, I guess. I'm very excited. I'm very looking forward to. I don't even know how to phrase this because this book was just so much, but I am very excited to read the second book with how this one left off. I don't know what else to say. That was wild. The next book that I read in January was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles series, and I ended up rating this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one. I definitely liked it more than Cinder. So in this book, we are introduced to new characters who we are getting their POV from in a different area of the world. And I really enjoyed our new characters. I can't even pinpoint why, but I feel like I felt more connected to them. And this was kind of a like Little Red Riding Hood retelling, but was set in the same world, continued the same story as the first book. And I just feel like the way that this series is going is a very interesting take. Like, there is an overall plot that we are introduced to in the first book, and we're kind of just picking up characters as we go along and adding them to our story. I just really enjoyed that. This one felt more high stakes than the first one, just with the storyline that was going on. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much more. There was just a lot going on at all times with having additional characters added to the story. There's a lot of secrets and layers and reveals. And again, I just couldn't put it down. After like, The Confidence of Wildflowers, I was really in the like, I want to keep reading, and this just definitely propelled me even farther. I was having such a great time with this, and I'm very excited to start Cress. I think it's the next one. The next book, oh my god. The next book that I read in January was another buddy read with Emily. We decided to take just a tiny little break between Crescent City books, even though we did not have time for this, but we did it anyway. We decided to read Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This is the second book in the Never After novels, I think. Unfortunately, I did not enjoy this book. I ended up only rating it 1 star. I don't even know how to describe this one. This is a Lion King retelling. It's in like a royal fantasy sort of setting and follow sort of like a coup. Going into the series, I thought that it was going to be like an interconnected standalone series. I didn't necessarily think that the characters were connected or anything, but I thought that it was going to be in the same world and have sort of the same like mafia romance vibes that Ever did, or Hooked was the first one called. That was not the case. The setting was very strange, and all of the character motives didn't make sense, but was also kind of predictable at the same time. It was just very odd. The pacing was strange. There was a lot of time jumps when we were getting sort of into the end of the book and action was starting to happen. It seemed like they were starting to make some like big moves and big decisions, and then all of a sudden something happened, and then the chapter would end, and then the next chapter would start, and it would be like into the future and something else was happening. And I didn't understand why we didn't get to see the actual scene play out. It was very strange. Our female main character, Sarah, to me, felt like she had less personality than a stick. I didn't get a connection from her at all. I didn't feel like she was doing anything. I didn't feel like she was trying to like get any closer towards like her goal that she was trying to accomplish. And then Tristan had this most bizarre god complex that just felt entirely out of place and flipped on like a switch, and it was just strange. I'll insert a picture up here of this like cat meme that's just like, and that was honestly just the feeling of the entire book was just kind of like, what the F? Like, what? What is happening? The spice was also cringy to me. I just didn't feel like there's any connection between the characters. I didn't particularly like any of the characters. It was just a lot. It was a lot. And if you like this book, I'm very happy for you. Reading is entirely subjective. Everyone is going to have different reading opinions, different likes, different dislikes. But I just want to know why. Like, what about this book did you enjoy? Because I would love to know. I always want to be liking books that are popular, and I want to know why people are enjoying the books that they're enjoying, because I want to like them all too. But this was not not it for me. I really wanted to enjoy Emily McIntyre's writing, but both of the books that I've read so far by her, I just haven't entirely vibed with. I think we will finish out this series because I'm really interested to read them all. And I even might read her other series, which I can't remember what it's called, because I really want to like her as an author. But so far, it's not hitting. Book number 6 that I read in January was Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This was a reread for me. I ended up buying this on sale on my Kindle in 2022, I think, and read it and loved it. And I read it and loved it again after buying the physical copy. I rated this 4 stars again. This is just a really fun, really spicy university romance. It brings me back to my university experience and just like found family friendships in this book are everything. The communication in all of Hannah Grace's, but all her 2 books are amazing. The mental health therapy rep, amazing. It's just so much fun. In this book, we are following Anastasia, who is a figure skater, and Nate, who is on the hockey team. Something happens to one of the ranks at their university, and they end up having to share the rank, and it sort of follows them along, just like living life at university and just sort of like how you interact with different people that you like just keep running into or have to be around each other all the time. And this was just so much fun. All the hockey guys are so much fun. I love like all the characters in this book. So good. Would highly recommend. Just such a fun time. Then immediately following Icebreaker, I picked up Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I heard like not the best reviews about this one after it came out, but I really enjoyed it. I ate this up. I ended up rating this 4 stars. We're following Russ, who is another hockey player on the hockey team as in Icebreaker, and Aurora, who also goes to the university. They end up having a one-night stand at a party and find themselves as camp counselors at the same summer camp a couple days later. It just follows them learning how to interact with each other after that happened, as well as being around a bunch of kids. Again, I loved all their side characters in this. I honestly thought that the summer camp setting was really fun. I know that a lot of people had issues with it, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It gave like nostalgic summer feelings. Even though I never worked at a summer camp, I went to like a day camp one year when I was younger. Again, the trauma and mental health rep was great in this book. The communication was still good, although differed compared to Icebreaker, but it made sense to the story. And I really connected to Russ and Aurora, honestly, in different aspects of their life and their character traits. There was one character in this book that also takes place in Icebreaker named Ryan, and his involvement in this book just like felt kind of odd, but you know, like whatever, it worked. The cameos of our main characters from Icebreaker or just the other characters on the hockey team in this book were so much fun. It was just so wholesome. I was like audibly giggling, smiling, just having the best time when I was reading this. My boyfriend looked over a couple times and was like looking at me like, what the heck is wrong with you? Because like, shh, why are you talking during your book? But I love this so much. I can't wait for Henry's book that comes out in a couple months, I think. They're just so cute. The last book that I finished this month, or actually just finished yesterday, was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the Crescent City series. Finished just in time for Flaming Shadow to come out. This one I ended up rating 5 stars once again, although I will say that the beginning of this one is a lot slower than the first one and kind of feels like you're in a totally different series. There's really nothing that I can say to explain it, but we are, again, in an urban fantasy setting. We're following a mystery investigation once again. We're introduced to a couple new characters, which is super fun, getting a couple more POVs, which is super fun. But I will say that there is a lot of setup and building of layers and information in the first one, which honestly doesn't make sense at all. Very confused during like the first half of this book, and then you start to get the reveals and the secrets, and you start to find out what's actually going on, and it's honestly unbelievable that Sarah J. Maas can weave these plot lines and tiny details that she drops in previous books and just makes them all come together at the end. I couldn't stop reading it. I ended up reading like 200 pages yesterday, which, Emily, I'm very sorry that I read ahead once again. We were buddy reading this together. We were supposed to finish today, so it's fine. But I just couldn't put it down. As soon as you're at that like 100, 200 pages left in a Sarah J. Maas book, like there's no stopping you. You can't put it down. So I'm very excited to start the next book. Very glad that I had such a good reading experience with this series the second round and ended up enjoying it a lot more. The last book that I want to just give an honorable mention to is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I do want to just touch base on this because I really want to try and prioritize all of my TBRs and getting through them. This is the only book from my January TBR that I didn't finish in January, but I am about 100 pages into it and I started it, so I'm going to count it. I have finished my entire January TBR, which is really exciting. I will say that my January TBR was supposed to have Caraval in the YA section, but there was somebody at my library who was holding Caraval for a month after the due date. So I picked Scarlet for that prompt instead. But I am still on the wait list for that book and will be reading it in a couple months. So with that being said, those are all of the books that I read in January. I had such a fun time reading this month. I cannot wait to continue my reads into February and just have the best reading year. Let me know down below what your favorite book that you read in January was and something that you're looking forward to reading in February. I would love to chat with you. I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.